All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. It is promptly 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Today, we're going to go ahead and get started on our topic here. A few things before we get started. If you've got a single monitor, click the little red arrow to the right or to the sidebar of your webinar control panel to minimize that control panel. Allows you to get a better visual grasp of the presentation here today. If you've got a dual monitor set up, second monitor, just drag that off to your second desktop to get it out of the way. We're going to be here together for the next 20 minutes or so. I will do my best to get everything into the 20 minutes. Wherever I am, I'm going to pretty much stop right at 20 after. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I will do my best to keep an eye on those. If they're topical, I will and repeat the question for everyone's benefit, and then we'll see what we can do to answer that. Can do to answer it. If you, again, that does kind of beg the next question or the topic, which is please keep the questions on topic about the enter bill pay bills process. If you have other questions there about other portions of the software, another webinar event may be scheduled that is more suited to answer your question, or of course our technical support staff are here and available to answer questions you have right now. We are recording today's webinar. It will be released on our support center here at some point in the next week to 10 days. I think we've already actually got one out on the website right now about enter bills and pay bills. So if I go to the support center and type in enter bills, come on, Josh, where is it? There it is, enter bills. And click enter. It says accounting, enter bills, pay bills, print checks, version 17 or newer. So there is a topic that covers much of what we're covering today. We're not going to be talking about paying or printing checks today, just the enter bills, pay bills process. FYI, the document that I'm using as the basis for the event today is from this link or this page right here. Up here is the PDF file. Right here, view or print PDF to enter and pay bills. That is what I'm using as the guide for the event today, so you can go and print that out, and you'll be seeing the same thing that I'm using today. Okay, very detailed printout document of what we're covering. So FYI, lots of information available to you. On that document, frankly, I think the very first, the introductory, paragraphs there really describe the importance of the enter bills, pay bills process for church windows accounting. Okay, if we go into accounting, we've got both our enter bills and pay bills windows buttons right here. Enter bills, then pay bills. And we get the question a lot is, do we have to enter both of those transactions? And simply, folks, the answer is 9 times out of 10, if not more, the answer to that question is yes, okay? The enter bills window debits your expense account for your budget and your treasurer's report and credits and moves that balance from the fund into the vendor. The pay bills window or pay bills transaction, payment transaction debits the vendor and credits cash to record the withdrawal from your bank account and for your bank reconciliation. If we don't post both of those transactions, only half of generally the necessary accounts are affected, okay? It is literally that simple, okay? So, in rare situations, as it describes, I think on a later page here, the rare occasions where we don't have to go to enter bills, or we're in the cases of things like pass-through monies that are given from donations where it's not affecting our funds or our treasurer's report accounts, or in the case of something like payroll taxes, for 941 taxes, state taxes, what have you, payroll deductions and withholdings. The balances are put into those accounts, those vendors or liabilities directly. There is no expense to affect because the balance is already there. We're going to look at that a little more later. So when we go to enter bills, yeah, you basically got to post to all accounts, both of the transaction types, folks, in order to be able to ensure that all of our accounts are affected properly, okay? So when we go to enter bills, the first thing that pops up is our enter bills, and it defaults to the date on your computer as the default date occurred. You can change that to any date that you want. Whatever the date on the computer is what's going to show up as. You can enter an invoice number if you have one. We would recommend it. A due date too if you wish. They're optional. They're not required by the software. One of the things that this the document talks about is, if you want to save yourself tabs or mouse clicks by turning off the, you don't enter invoices or due dates, just flip off those little light switches there at the top left, and that will then disable those fields. And if you tab through your fields or enter through them, it will ensure that, it'll just save you mouse clicks and time on that. The same is true for our comments. So if you don't enter transaction comments, you can disable that. Everybody should notice that that light switch is now turned down, and we're basically saying we're not going to enter any transaction comments. Technically, these can be enabled and disabled at will. Okay? So then the next portion of that is then we have to go down and choose our vendor or our liability account, the vendor or payee that we're paying. So if I type in a to notice, it is finding my liability accounts. Liabilities and vendors are all categorized as liabilities on our chart of accounts and in our balance sheet. Just a lot of vendors don't have account numbers. Or I can type in an account name just as easily. So there I've typed in CLA for Clark's Organ Repair. So you can search by either name or number. Okay. So if we type in our number 2 account, we're going to be posting something like for, let's scroll down here, Michelle's Crafts. So then we would enter comments if we wish. Then we would choose the expense account that we're wanting to debit. So if we click the down arrow, it's going to reveal our expenses. I do like to point out, folks, that if you, in the cases of some like wash accounts or offset accounts, maybe your bills aren't debiting to expenses. Maybe they're debiting to a for income account. It's rare, but it is there and available should you need it. Okay? So notice as we move down past the 5s, it does go into our income accounts if we wish. Okay? So, let's say that we've got some crafts for getting something from our crafts, Michelle's Crafts for our senior citizens event. And then we would type in whatever we were wanting for our amount that was being charged for that. We could type in line item or transaction comments. So we'll call that senior craft event. Click done, add to batch. Then my cursor pops back up to the top, ready for me to enter my next vendor and do the same thing. Let's say this bill this time is going to be entered as of 22nd next week. Okay? So again, you can either search, folks, or you can click the down arrow. It's going to list all of your accounts in your vendor/payee list alphabetically. Okay? I could also go up to recurring transactions and select recurring transactions from there if I wish. Let's say we're going to pay our city florist. Again, I can enter comments. We're going to type in flowers. There's our flower expense account. Again, typing in the amount that I want. We don't have to have one expense for one bill, folks. So if I've got a bill that's multiple expense accounts, I can click the plus sign to the right or hit the tab key, and when the account moves down, I can go ahead and enter, a multiple expenses. So if, part of those flower expenses this month were considered building fund expenses, I can make that a multi-point bill if I wish. Okay. Very common example of that would be something like a credit card bill. One vendor, multiple expense accounts, may or may not have the same date. You can certainly click done, add to batch, and reselect if you want it to affect different dates on your reports. But again, the process continues by clicking done, add to batch. Okay. Oh, I meant to add some comments for my city florist. If I need to edit that, I can double click on it down here at the bottom or click edit, and it moves it back up to the top. And I can type in something like Sunday flowers, done, add to batch. Okay. And the process continues ad nauseum until I'm ready to post those payments. If I wish to remove a vendor from the batch, I simply highlight it and click remove, and it'll remove it. It'll delete the bill. If you click print here, folks, this is a pre-posting report, okay? You will also be prompted to print after you post. The transactions are created and posted. The main difference is until you click post, the transactions don't exist. So the pre-printing report here will not include transaction numbers. If we wait and click print after we post, the transaction numbers will be included. If you've got extensive batches, we would certainly recommend clicking Save Batch periodically to ensure that your work is saved. Okay. This Church Windows doesn't save these batches automatically. Same is true for other portions of the software. So, if you've got, 30 bills you've got to enter and Church Windows crashes in the middle of it for one reason or another, and you don't save batch, you're going to have to re-enter those bills again. So, again, I recommend getting in the habit of clicking Save Batch every handful of entries. Once the bills we've entered are entered, okay, we're then going to choose either post or post and pay these bills. I would click post maybe if I'm wanting to come back tomorrow and pay them, okay, or next week, if you're really working on an accrual basis. If you're working on a cash basis and time warrants, you're most likely going to choose post and pay these bills. This then opens up the pay bills windows with these vendors and all these bills that we've entered pre-selected. Okay? That's the main difference. If I'm ready to pay them right now, I'm going to do post and pay. Okay, but I'm going to do just post right now because, again, what it'll do is it'll take both of these bills and it'll just pop them up into my pay bills window pre-selected. But we're going to go post. So if we click post, it asks us, do we want to print? So this report now will include my transaction numbers that have been created for both of these bills if I click yes. Okay, very important. As a technician for the software, folks, if you call me and tell me, hey, Josh, my transactions that I posted as part of my bills the other day and I'm not able to find those bills, and I ask you to print the report, did you print the report? The first thing I'm going to ask you is, did you print the report that verifies that came up after you posted them when the transaction numbers were created? If we answer yes to that question, we've got somewhere we can go. If we don't, then we may not have posted the batch of bills or transactions the way we had thought we did. Okay? This report is more important, I think, after posting rather than pre-posting. So we're going to click no. So then now we're done here. Now we're going to go to step 2 under pay bills. Okay? So a couple things here under pay bills. There's multiple ways you can check vendors to pay your bills. You can go up here and I could go and find, those particular vendors here, City Florist here if I want. Kind of tedious, okay? But if you want to enter or set up your batch one at a time, most users will use the option here in the upper right-hand side called Quick Pay right here, okay? This is basically a list or menu of various options. I can do bills entered today. I can do view vendors with a balance, choose view vendors with a balance or view outstanding bills. So if I choose view outstanding bills, there are my 2 bills that I paid earlier, posted earlier, entered earlier. Okay? Or if I go to Quick Pay and bills entered today, it recognizes my date posted matches today's date, 10/16, and it brings in both of those invoices. Okay? Or bills. If I choose not to pay a selected vendor, I can highlight it in the list and click Do Not Pay Selected Vendor. It says, are you sure you don't want to pay Michelle's Crafts at this time? We click Yes. It removes it from our payments batch, but it does not, of course, delete the bill. It still shows up under my outstanding bills. Okay? Also, view vendors with a balance. Now, this is one that's a little different from the standpoint that, yes, notice my City Florist still shows up here. Michelle's Crafts still shows up here. Until they're paid, they're still going to show up here. But this list is going to show any vendor or liability account. Notice the liabilities with 200s after the account numbers also show up here, okay, right here in parentheses after the name, in addition to my vendors. Any vendor with a balance. okay, will appear in this list. So we notice here I've got a mortgage and my taxes for state and local and federal and my payroll pension, things like that. So these again maybe not are accounts where balances are generated in these accounts by something other than a bill, maybe a journal entry or something like that, okay? So this list may even under vendors with a balance may show something different than if you go to like view bills entered today or view outstanding bills, okay? So I'm going to go back to view outstanding bills. I'm going to choose Michelle's Crafts, click create payment. It now adds it back to my batch. All right, so what we also then recommend is it also defaults to the date occurred today under your payments or your bills too here. So if you need to, you can check the date occurred and change it, but it's going to change it for all of them. So if I go, oh, I didn't mean to do that, I would change it back to 10/16, then I would go, okay, I want City Florist to be next week. I can just choose that one particular date occurred for that one particular payment and edit that. So I always tell folks, you know, kind of moving left to right here. So it starts with your date occurred. Make sure the date occurred for your entries are right. Make sure the vendor payee is correct. Okay, choose your asset account. Notice here we've got our defaults set up across the top for date occurred, asset account, and payment method. But folks, you can change any one of these for any one of the line items in your payments batch. Okay, you're not locked into whatever the default says. Okay, even amount to pay or payment method. So while we have those set up as our defaults, you're not locked into them. Okay, let's say we purchase enough flowers from our florist each month or week that we set up electronic payments with them. I can go right here under computer check for that city florist line and just change it to EFT. Meanwhile, leaving Michelle's Crafts as computer check. Okay. Of course, nothing is entered. I can choose to enter something for EFT in check or reference number, maybe an online confirmation or something, but it's not required. For my computer check, of course, I'm not going to enter my check here. That'll be prompting me for that when I get to my print check screen, okay? But what I do want to point out, and this is very important too, is over here, notice transaction comments. Notice that none of my comments from my bills came over. They're there, but they're not automatically put into the payment transactions. If you want to use your copy or paste your bill transactions into your payment, you have to use this INS feature right here on the right-hand side, folks, right here, okay? Hopefully everybody can see that. So if we click on the INS right here next to City Florist, there are my Sunday Flowers comments. If I have line item and transaction comments, it allows me to paste them in, all of them, if I want. So I go, okay, append to payment comments. It now shows up down here in the bottom left. I now click OK, and now notice Sunday Flowers appears. Those comments will now appear on the stub of my check. Okay, so if I go to my Michelle's Crafts, click on that. There's my senior craft event, append to payment comments, click OK, and again, those will now print on the checks. Okay. Again, I have an option to remove the vendor. I can print a pre-posting report again, very similar type control, folks, to the enter bills, in that if I wait and print it afterwards, it will include the transaction numbers that are created. Again, if you've got sizable big payments batch, you might want to save it periodically. Again, it's not required. And again, post versus post and print checks. So maybe I want to post those payments, prepare them. I'm going to go to lunch. I'm going to come back this afternoon and print them. I might choose post and then go back into the print checks window separately when I'm actually ready to print those checks physically to the check stock. Okay. You literally, folks, have full control here. Okay. If I go, oh, I meant to pay one of my vendors from my list that wasn't entered through a bill, I can go, oh, I've got to pay my 941 taxes today. It's the 16th of the month. We're 2 weeks in. Highlight that. Click Create Payments. It adds my Internal Revenue Service down here. I have to simply edit the date, the asset, put in the amount that I want to pay on that, and then choose how I'm going to pay them. We're going to say we paid them through EFTPS online, and then I've just added that one vendor with a balance to that list of bills without having to deviate away or do a separate payment on that, okay? All part of the same batch. But then when I'm ready, I would again click Post. Oh, it's telling me it's a link to a different asset account. That's okay. Do you want to pay this bill? We're going to click Yes. And then it pops up and asks me, do I want to print the list of payment transactions as well? Okay. So again, you get those, so if we click Yes on this time, it now opens up our payments batch, shows our columns. Now when we click Print, it opens up the report preview. It should. And it should include the transaction numbers that are created here. Yep, 101, 102, and 100. Yep. So before, if I clicked that and printed those transaction numbers wouldn't exist because I hadn't posted yet. So there are advantages to waiting and printing afterwards. All right, folks, that's our topic for the day. Again, I might have missed something that was on the document. I hope not. I'm pretty thorough that way. I don't see any questions in the questions portion of that webinar control panel. Yeah, again, folks, please type those in if you have those. Otherwise, if you're diving out here, thank you so much for attending. We hope it's been helpful. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your support on the webinars. We hope you find them helpful. You certainly make them worthwhile for us. We thank you for being loyal Church Windows customers and users. Our support staff are always available at, of course, 800-533-5227, during business hours, during the week. Okay, here's a question. How do I fix an account number for a payment that never changes, like flowers at the florist? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, Stuart. I'm sorry. You can go in and correct the bill or the payment transactions if you're talking about correcting transactions that have been posted in the past to correct those transactions. That's not our topic for the day, but briefly we would go to transactions, browse, find the entry, correct them, and correct the accounts, but I'm not sure that's what you're asking. I'm sorry. Gail is asking, could we have a running total on the enter bill screen before posting? Gayla, you called me about this on a support call, dear. I've added it to suggestions for you, as promised. Stuart's confirming there is only one account that I use at our florist. Do I have to type it in every week? No, you can go into a manage accounts here, find City Florist, and go here to City Florist, go to your vendor payee tab and set a default expense account right here on the right. I get it now. Good question. Yeah, that'll definitely save time on selecting those. Those will pop in those expense accounts each and every time you choose those vendors. Great question. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in, folks. Again, if you have any other questions that were not answered, please contact our support staff at 800-533-5227, or you can send emails to us at support@churchwindows.com or through the support center at the website. We know that questions come up after events, and so certainly our staff are available and happy to help. Please visit the free online webinar page to see our list of current future events. Again, we hope it's been helpful, and we will look forward to seeing everyone at a future Church Windows webinar event. Thank you all. I'll go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.